Hello and welcome to iTuber. My name is Lina, and today we have an interview with CARDSTACK project, and the speaker is the founding director, Chris C. Hello, Chris, and welcome to our channel.
Hi, nice to be here.
Chris, please tell us about yourself. I'll let you introduce yourself and tell us about your background, please.
Yeah, I'm the founding director of the CARDSTACK project. It's a project I started in 2014. But before that, I had been a technologist working both in startups and in big enterprises. In the bigger enterprises, I work in an R&D role, so it's still kind of startup within a big company. My focus has been on usable, humanized technology. How do you bring technology to the masses? Through media, through great products and user experience. So that's been my focus. Another one of my focus is to make sure that we can understand how to use data better. And that, I did data stuff before it was called big data and machine learning. Actually, I was part of an acquisition team that became part of a division of a large company, which I worked for a couple of years after that at McGraw-Hill in New York City here. So I've been very kind of interested in the intersection of data and kind of user experience. And what drawn me to the blockchain space and what the CARDSTACK project really represent is what happens if the data that's been aggregated and kind of collaborated through this decentralized mechanism becomes so rich that you don't even know what's going on anymore. What does that look like? What do you own? What do you have? Like, what relationship was formed on the blockchain? And right now, a lot of relationship can be formed, but what does it look like? So CARDSTACK project is really focused on taking my sensibility and the team around me to build that experience layer of the decentralized internet, to expose all that great capability and great insight in a way that is going to be usable in everybody's daily lives.
Well, is CARDSTACK your first step into crypto, or was there something else before that?
CARDSTACK was it was predated crypto. I had this idea in my head for a composable user experience layer, not just for, like crypto, because that was before I was in it, but just like seeing the silo problem between Facebook and Google, and everything is either in this cloud or that cloud. You have to open 17 tabs to even get a sense of what's going on. I already saw that there's a problem there. So I started the project, an open source project, a vision before I knew about blockchain. But I had the good fortune to have met the founders of the Ethereum project in the summer of 2014. They were visiting New York at the time of their token sale, I believe. And we just had dinner and met. And it's like, wow, this is really amazing. This is very nascent, very new. I don't know what's going to come out of it, but I definitely felt like I want to get into the field. So with CARDSTACK in the back of my mind as an open source project and kind of continuous contribution, I started a couple other projects where I experimented, for example, with an organization called Monograph, which I was CTO for. I partnered with a NYU professor and a renowned artist, Kevin McCoy, to create a digital art proof of existence and proof of provenance on the Bitcoin blockchain, using op return as a way to encode the metadata about the work. And I did that project because it's the simplest possible thing I can think of. Like, if you're going to do blockchain ownership beyond currency, let's try to encode digital art on the blockchain. So that's the first one. And then since then, I've also done another project around the media space under the label of Blockchain Music, which is about thinking about using blockchain to build a decentralized metadata registry for all of the music business, both on the kind of label side and indie side. And that taught me a lot about, the challenges of bringing people together, but also the potential of using a combination of permission ledgers and open public ledgers to build this ecosystem in a kind of multi-layered way. But while I was working on those two projects, we also did other projects using CARDSTACK as a experience layer on top of maybe not blockchain, but certainly membership systems and content syndication system. And it became clear that we should focus on taking what we've learned with all these projects I worked on, and CARDSTACK being kind of that underlying framework, and really offering what I've learned through CARDSTACK as a framework to more developers. So instead of just me having access to these reusable components, I want everybody to have that. And that's really where we begun, I think, around October of 2016 to look at CARDSTACK as a key piece of infrastructure for decentralized movement. And that's where the project really took off.
Well, that's such a great experience in this small amount of time we have. And in your answer right now, excuse me, you mentioned in the beginning that you were thinking about the problems CARDSTACK may solve before you actually knew about the blockchain. Does that mean that it was possible to actually solve the problem you are trying to solve now with CARDSTACK to solve without the blockchain?
No, I mean the blockchain is just another data source. It's just another way to say that's the truth. Like we've decided that the Bitcoin you own versus I own is in this distributed ledger. But there's other truths, right? Are you a citizen of a country? What is in your bank account? Do you have a membership in an organization? These are all different truths, and the topology of those truth databases are different. Some of them are more centralized than other ones. They're federations. Passport is kind of federated. Every country issue their own, but there's a collaboration between the format on the strip on the bottom of passport. So that's kind of like a federated network. It's not on the blockchain, but it's certainly not owned by one country, and there's some agreement around it. So the truth is our world has always been different layers of technology, and more important, different type of trust model applies and syndication model apply to each sphere of our life. But here's the thing. The user is only one person. I am one person. I have these Bitcoins. I have these Ethers. I have these passport. I have these membership cards. I have these employment relationship. I have these business relationships. There's currently no way to bring that together so that you can see it and say, what is your life look like? What is your digital life? It's certainly not what's on Facebook. My friends on Facebook is not all my friends. My connection on LinkedIn is not all my business associate. So the truth is that the problem that CARDSTACK is trying to solve transcends just the new data, the new truth that is encoded in the blockchain, and something makes a lot of sense on it, some things don't. But once I realized that the blockchain has this particular problem, more so than logging into Facebook and seeing your friends list, I don't even know who are my friends on Ethereum. Like, the dApps are only beginning to make that happen. So I really see that the blockchain necessitates, in a way that centralized technology didn't, the type of framework and protocol that the CARDSTACK can provide.
Okay, so let's go deeper maybe.
Sure.
Tell us what type of problems CARDSTACK is aiming to solve, and how exactly you're going to do that. Maybe you will give some more use cases so it will be easier for us to understand.
Yeah, so let's start with something kind of a simple application that people are probably wanting to use, right? So if you're in the blockchain space, you probably want a portfolio manager or like an accounting system for how much crypto do I have. Very simple problem. Like we're just kind of picking that just because it's pretty isolated. I own tokens on different chains. On the Ethereum chains within it, I own tokens in different kind of ERC20 tokens, right? How much do I own? When did I first take possession? How much has the value come up? Just that problem requires four things. One, you need to have a way within one user experience, one interface, to get into each of the blockchain. So you need an adapter into Ethereum, into Bitcoin, into the various forks of Bitcoins and other smart contracts platform and privacy coin that came along the way. So let's say 10 plugins. And then that's just the possession of that's just getting the balance from the mainnet. And then the second thing you need is that you need to know what are your addresses that you care about, because you don't want to be like taking in all the information for everybody. So that's a list of your holding. And now you may want to be transparent, say here's what I hold, but you don't really want to put that on the blockchain, right? That may be your own private data. So you need a private database that's only readable by you. And then you need a price feed historical of what value did you acquire the token at and what's its current value. Well, that's an oracle that exists outside of the blockchain or outside your database. And then you need to be able to log into it. And maybe you have a couple of people on your team. And then you need, a sharing system, and you need a website, and you need to notify, and you need a warning, you need a chart. By the time you're done, you're talking about 7 or 8, maybe 17 or 18 different subsystems that is needed to give you that really simple view of this is where my life is. That is the use case CARDSTACK can solve, right? We have a CARDSTACK hub, which is essentially a data orchestration, a data combining entity, like a software there. But here's the thing. CARDSTACK hub is not Coinbase. It's not hosted somewhere else and you have to log in. It's hosted in your machine if you choose to on your desktop, or it could be much like when you have WordPress, you can deploy WordPress to any web hosting company of your choice. So it's running for you. It's your data. You own it. And then within the CARDSTACK hub, we have plugins to connect to all those systems I talked about, price feeds, the different chains, and login systems and sharing system. And that's where you can get that cohesive feel. So I just picked a really simple problem that everybody probably want. And it's more than just, I'm going to build an Ethereum-based dApp using MetaMask. That does not solve the problem, right? So that just tells you the gap between where we are as a decentralized application development, a stage of this industry to what even a basic useful application is going to require. And we are trying to figure out exactly what the gap is between what the user expects and what the layer 1, layer 2 infrastructure is up to. So between what the user expects, which is layer 10, there's at least 8 layers missing. And we're trying to fill some of that.
Well, excellent answer. So as an end user, now I understand that it will make my life much easier and I'll be in control of all the media outlets or everything I need from one device. But who else is the target audience except for the end user like me? Developers. If developers, then what are their incentives to actually develop their dApps on the platform?
Absolutely. I think when we talk about developers in the crypto or blockchain space, we typically focus on protocol developers, the really low-level geek. I wrote Solidity. I'm writing a consensus algorithm. I'm making my own blockchain. But the truth is that represent maybe 0.2% of all people we call developer in the technology industry. Most developers or designers or product kind of managers are working on mobile apps, web apps, enterprise apps, software as a service apps, right? They have no way into the blockchain. So when we talk about the developers that we need to make truly useful, human, and user-friendly application, I'm not saying that I'm not going to get Vitalik to build a beautiful dashboard for me, but that's not what he does, right? He builds beautiful engines that make new things possible. But there are a lot of people that's working for Facebook, working for Tencent, working for other people that would love to get into crypto and build this, translate their skills. Those are the developers we want. And then more importantly, those are the developers that crypto and blockchain needs to be able to really deliver to the end user that type of beautiful experience. I'll give you an example for that. So in the world of making websites, anybody, with open source software, any, firm or business can go download, WordPress and try to make a website. But the truth is that they hire agencies and freelancers and web developers who already know how to do it and they have great sensibility. They can empathize with you. It's like, hey, what are you trying to do? I'm trying to build a business and expose that. And they will kind of build this beautiful experience and they will hand you over some customization on top of this open source code space. That's why we have hundreds of millions of websites that is communicating important information. I believe those developers who are currently doing this type of consultation and product development and kind of customer service and customer empathy, right, to understand what the needs in the field needs to be brought into the crypto space so that the blockchain become another ingredient of what they can offer to their relationship and the long-term customers. That's how we're going to get mass market adoption in crypto. So to build the beautiful end user experience, we need to provide tools that regular developer or mainstream developers can now expand their services to include blockchain. And we make it easy enough through the CARDSTACK framework so that they can actually interact with Ethereum no different than interacting with a CRM system. Now, obviously, there's some technical differences in it, but it's just as easy. They don't have to completely think a different way. And then, to build an Ethereum app, I need a plugin called MetaMask before I can do anything. We're trying to make it so that you can deliver the solution with existing tool sets. So the incentives there is just expanding your business to include blockchain in your services. And then on the other side of it, we also want developers who are building these amazing new decentralized application to be able to participate, not just in that one-time consulting or one-time product development, but when this business, as this client, keep running the application for the next 3-4 years, the same way you keep hosting the same website that's been created for the next 3-4 years. Right now, the developer gets very little of that, almost none. The hosting company gets all of it. So the CARDSTACK ecosystem in our minds was, why don't we tokenize the day after the delivery of the software and say the customer pays not just this hosting company who is extracting the next 3 years of revenue and not taking all of it and keeping it all to themselves. In fact, they pay the network right? The same fee they will pay, like say $100 a month or something like that. And then when it's in the token ecosystem and that $100 is there, then we can say, how do we fairly distribute this $100 of customer cash to all the people who contributed to make this possible? Yes, the hosting company is providing the bandwidth and the storage, and they deserve the material cost of doing that plus the margin. The developer may be getting a royalty. Maybe the people who's built an open source module that's part of this experience should get a little slice of it. And that's the insight that we have. By tokenizing the ongoing revenue from customer after the app has been built, we can actually create a much fairer way, a much more aligned economic way for all the participants in the ecosystem to benefit from the long-term growth and the long-term sustainability of the work they create.
Great. Now you answered one of my questions I wanted to ask, actually, the role and the function of the token in the in CARDSTACK. So you answered that question already. So
Sure.
My next question would be, please explain us who are the analytic miners?
So as I just mentioned before, the greatest possibility of being able to incentivize people is to be fair, right? So you have a pie. Each person put in $100. Let's just keep it simple. And there's $100,000, $100 per month in revenue coming in for running the software long term. We need to decide, someone needs to decide how to split it. So let's say that someone is me, right? Like I am the founding director of the project. So I'm going to say, okay, let me look at some data, do some spreadsheet and say, okay, you get 2% of that. You get 1%. And, I'm a benevolent dictator. And trust me, this is the fairest thing I can do. Well, the good thing about that is that that's probably pretty simple. And that would be a oracle, right? Like in a blockchain sense, a service that look at all the data and recommends kind of arbitrarily, this is the pie chart. I don't think that's very decentralized. I don't think that will end up being probably being corruptible. Someone can bribe me or someone acting in that role, say, hey, give me like 10% more and 20% more. And suddenly I'm giving 50% of the pie to my friends versus based on the real objective analysis of how much this person used and how much this hosting company, provided the services. So analytic miner, jumping to the conclusion and we'll work backwards, is just to say that maybe this whole idea of doing this analysis to arrive at a pie chart should be done by a bunch of competitive people, much like cryptocurrency mining. So in cryptocurrency mining, everybody runs their own GPU or ASIC and they compete to become the person who writes the block. Well, the person recommending the pie chart is not all that different than the person writing the block, right? They have one and they're going to, and be entrusted to do this really important task. But there should be a competition, not only randomly select who is going to win, which is mining, but also checking the answers correct. So let's say you have 100 people doing the same calculation and 89 of them, maybe 99 of them came up with the same pie chart, right? Because it's the same underlying data of how much usage was across the network, and there is the same algorithm to determine, as far as right now, how we split the pie. Developer get this, and service provider get that. But one person says, I want half the pie chart to go to my friend. Then you can see, okay, this one of these is not like the others, and we can eliminate that person. And with a proof of stake system that we have, we can even slash the stake. And to participate, they have the stake. So much like proof of stake is like, hey, if you want to get selected to be an analytic miner, you got to put some real stake involved so we can slash it. And more importantly, it creates a way for us to know who is really serious and who really want to play that role. So that's the role of the analytic miner. The goal is really to arrive at the pie chart so we can split the pie. And we want to do it in a competitive way. And we believe that mining is a great incentive because not only would they get a transaction fee like gas in Ethereum or fee in Bitcoin for the total spend, so $100,000, maybe some percentage will go to the miner based on just thank you for doing the calculation necessary, but also that we want to also initially, before there's a meaningful amount of economic activity on the CARDSTACK token, we have some inflationary token that we distribute to the analytic miner as well. So they will be able to say, oh, I'm running some GPUs on ETH miner. CARDSTACK is getting some real cash flow and real activity, real usage, not just speculation, real usage, because they're doing like real application and people are deploying real business application connected blockchain. They may want to take 10% or 20% of the hash power and use the GPU instead for regular ETH mining and do analytic mining for us. So that's a market that already exists, and we want to tap into it. But if we do that, what we have effectively created is a decentralized trusted computation system for data analytics. As I mentioned earlier, that's where my expertise came from. I did a lot of big data, machine learning, and this really excites me as a way to introduce massively parallel computation to the blockchain, not just using a GPU for this one task of winning a lottery, but actually using it for what it's intended to do, or has grown up to do, not just gaming, but actually governing networks and running sophisticated algorithms to look for patterns and actually be able to fairly and accurately distribute the wealth of the network.
Well, Chris, this is great just talking to you. You are so detailed in your answers that I don't have to answer so many questions, and the audience doesn't have to see me so many times during the interview. So my next question is this one. What do you think? What is the common maybe misunderstanding in the community about the CARDSTACK, or maybe what is the most difficult thing to understand about CARDSTACK among community?
I think it's, how do I say this? I think it's that we don't believe it's possible for everybody in the community to understand all the layers of the CARDSTACK protocol. We are actually quite deep, right? So some protocols are really adapt and it's like a pretty UI on top of something. Some are vertical industry focusing on healthcare and stuff like that. We are actually trying to say, what is missing in crypto and blockchain? Let's do all the rest of them beyond the basic kind of blockchain type of decentralized ledger. And I feel that was very hard to express the ambition of the project without confusing people. So as a way to kind of simplify, or at least orient people towards the exploration, we call ourselves the experience layer of the decentralized internet, mainly to get people to think from top down. So a lot of blockchain projects are bottom up. So we say, think about the user experience and then take one layer down as you go and see what problem you need to solve. You need to aggregate the data. We need to have a cohesive experience. We need to have plugins to different blockchain. We need to be able to scalably analyze the usage data. And then we need to settle out, and we need an ETH token. We need a staking model, and then we're on chain in Ethereum, right? So that's kind of very hard to understand. So we try to essentially focus our marketing or our communication on the top layer. But the challenge is that it really isn't just that. It really is everything we've discussed in this call. And it would be really great to be able to have people appreciate CARDSTACK for all that it is without getting overwhelmed. Right now, I would take, if people say, I get that CARDSTACK is making it more usable and more scalable. I get that. That's enough. You're in our community. We align on our goal. We see the vision of utility over speculation. We want to make sure that the actual promise of blockchain is delivered, and the only way we deliver if there's users, and two, if the users are paying for the usage of the software, right? That's sustainable business versus just giveaway, like free everything. Everything is inflationary. Nobody actually spends any real money. That will end badly, most likely. So we are obsessed about delivering real world utility to be so useful that people will stop paying for Salesforce.com, $75 per user a month, and paying the equivalent amount to a crypto network to have that really propagate to a development designer community around the world. For that to happen, I think people really have to understand CARDSTACK for the whole stack that it is, the full or fullest stack. And that's going to take us some time. And I'm not trying to push people to understand today, but I would certainly hope that as people see and peel off the layer that we've been building, that they will come to that same conclusion.
Yes, indeed. The white paper I read, it's possible to understand it if you read it several times and you read it carefully. But at the same time, it's very difficult. It's very technical. And I'm actually very happy that projects are getting more and more complicated. That means there is quality coming in the market right now. So my next question is this one then. What will be the biggest obstacle for CARDSTACK to start working fully as you expected, the team expected to be, and to start working successfully, probably full scale?
Yeah. So I think the key word is progressive decentralization. I think total decentralization overnight is fiction, right? That's not going to happen. 99.9% of the world runs on some version of centralized authority and control, whether it's government or big business or Silicon Valley super giants, right? There's a mix of different authority that you need to subject to, but there's many of them, but they typically are more in the centralized way. Decentralization is an ideal that we work towards. We're not going to get there in 1 year or even 10 years. So the way to make sure that we can overcome the obstacle is not get caught when things are not fully decentralized and not deliver the value we can. So if we ship, let's say, a application that will run on the web that you can deploy and you have a website, kind of like Coinbase, right? Except it's open source and it taps into this richer ecosystem for fair attribution. And then underneath that connects to the blockchain we have today, the usage that we're able to do today. That will be success. Okay. And then we gradually add more capability. For example, self-sovereign identity, decentralized identity. Not really possible today. There's a lot of projects, but it's not any mass adoption. So let's not do that in the beginning. Let's do simple identity to get that working. And then once we have that working, then when a decentralized identity project takes off, whether that's Uport or DIF doing something, the Decentralized Identity Foundation have a standard recommended, then we swap that one module for login from a centralized version to a decentralized version. And then you do it gradually in all the 15 dimensions. When the decentralized protocols are ready, then we swap it out, or at least we put it into the ring and say, compete with the centralized version of this, right? And that's the key. And I would say that our success is going to predicate on all the success of all the projects we connect to. We're not building a decentralized insurance system. We like to use one when one is working, so that you can buy insurance without all the paperwork, right? But in the beginning, if there's an insurance provider that has an API, we want to show how that would look like. How do I buy insurance as part of my decentralized app? Well, let's use an existing provider as a placeholder so that people can experience what that looks like to add an insurance to an existing message thread or something like that. And then later on, the decentralized protocol designer will say, you know what? I'm doing exactly what that is. Let me fork the code for the centralized module and make my version, check it in and see if other people will pick it up and use an alternative. So I would say that progressive decentralization, that gradual delivery of, that target towards true collaboration will only happen if people can see the whole thing. And that whole thing needs to be built earlier using a mix of practical cloud, native, and blockchain. And I think that's really our greatest challenge is how long does it take for us to get there? But I think if we can accomplish that practical vision of shipping something today with 93% centralized module and 7% decentralized, and have that ratio go from 7% to 12% to 15%, we're going to get to where we need to do sooner than later.
Great. So we are almost running out of our time. So let's focus on token generation event. So there were 3 batches.
Yes.
2 of them, A and B. You already had them, and now you're planning to have C, batch C. So who came up with the idea to organize the token generation event in this way? And I know that you are using Bitcoin Suisse for the crowdfunding as a platform, and why you are using it, because as far as I know, not many people like using Bitcoin Suisse because it has some difficulties. I don't know. Of course, it is good for KYC and AML, and you as an ICO, as a project, you know for sure that everything is legal. But from the user side, it's like Bitcoin Suisse, it's a bit difficult for us to participate. So what do you think about that?
So I think, being a project that is based in Switzerland and understanding there's a thoughtful regulatory body and a well-established understanding of how to be fair to all the participants and provide that safety that if you're participating in the Swiss organized thing, there's a certain amount of quality, not just in blockchain, just across the board, right? That's what drawn me to Switzerland. The the folks that organized the Ethereum Foundation, the law firm, came to me and say, hey, you've been an experienced blockchain entrepreneur and technologist. We really need people with your experience to come into the token world, right? Which was very new when I first met Thomas Linder from MME in October 2016 in New York, about a couple of blocks from here. And to me, I always thought that if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. I'm going to do it compliant way. We're going to do it to understand the best practice, not just of how do you get an exciting kind of token event and getting a lot of community support and getting all the people jumping in. That's important, and we certainly appreciate that we have 16,000 people in our Telegram community, and appreciate the influx of interest that's going on right now as we open for KYC as we speak today until Sunday. I love that. That's great. But we also have to know that we're trying to build an organization that will last 10 years at least. That's what we're asking for, right? We're saying we want the support and the community to come together toward this big, you would agree, vision. And you cannot take risk that would have one day say, you know what, you did your token event in a way that makes you uncompliant, and then you get ostracized. You lose your bank account. You lose your ability to work. You lose your ability to get additional licenses as that may become necessary to offer more services to the community, for example, for fiat on-ramp, right? So to do this in a way that allows us to have the best long-term potential, we need to eat our vegetables. We need to be a little bit more careful as we go into this kind of initial push to make sure that all the participants are real people. One of the biggest problem I think people don't understand is that for every Russian bot that you approve, for every fake passport you approve, it's one allocation that you take away from a contributor and a community member who's real, who's passionate, who's going to tell their friends about it. So it's not that we're doing a process to make it impossible for people to get in. It's that we make it impossible for fake people to get in. Okay. And that means, you're right. It means that it makes it more difficult for real people to get through that, but we will work with you. So under the Swiss regulation for any type of phase, whether it's the early contributed phase or the pre-allocation or the crowd, A, B, and C, we need to manually review all the documents. There's no automated review in Switzerland, right? At least in currently. So that's really expensive and time consuming, but it's great because no machine can really read between the lines, between a signature, between a word, and see if there's any type of gaps. So we're going to invest in it. And I think good projects are doing that. A lot of other projects are like, you know, whatever. It's like, if it roughly looks like a passport and then you have an email address, you're in. And that really creates a situation where we've seen a situation where like 30% of them are duplicate addresses created +1, +2 in Gmail. That's not good for the community. Those gets aggregated and it may go to a whale or go to a trading fund that are going to dump it. I think people who are going to be real people who really appreciate a vision and more importantly, self-select to go through the process are likely the people who's going to be aligned with our interests and aligned with each other's interests. So that hopefully answers the question of why I believe this stringent project is not really to protect the foundation from some legal risk. That's true, but not really. It's really protect the community so that we know that everybody who is in this room together, having fun together, actually know that each other are real and each other has gone through the same stringent process, and you can trust the community. As far as the kind of batch A, B, and C process, so again, just to recap for the audience, in batch A, we collected about $20 million from strategic contributor. I personally interview in a similar format, sometimes on the phone, every single person who wants an allocation. I want to know who they are, what they stand for, what they've been kind of doing before crypto, what they've done in crypto, and to find people who are long-term aligned with the vision that I've shared with you today. And we've said no to a lot of people just because it's not a right fit. We've also said no to people who couldn't really pass the bar to be able to, contribute a larger amount. And that's been really good. There's a huge list. The number of people who actually got allocation in batch A is relatively small. In batch B, we want to give opportunity for people to do first come, first serve. So to make it fairer, if you didn't get selected or qualify for that strategic contribution in that alignment, we want you to be able to just say, hey, just qualify that you have the ability to contribute up to 50,000 USD and just click your mouse really fast. And that just gives an opportunity for us to give people a fair chance. It's a race, but it's a race that in 6 minutes, a lot of people got in, and we were able to fill $6.5 million worth of contribution in fiat and crypto in 6 minutes. And that's really good. And the crowd fundraiser is just broadening that a little bit lower cap. It's going to be below some kind of, we don't need to look at, financial data. So there's a certain limit of what the banking system lets us do for that. And then people will have a chance. Now, if you're early in the community, you have been with CARDSTACK in our Telegram and our email list since maybe January, we'll give you an individual cap that's higher, override cap. But if you join the community, it should be a reasonable cap. That's a great thing about having more stringent KYC is that you're not dealing with 20,000 bots where everybody just get like 0.2 ETH or something. So this is something that we really try to design in a way to just be fair and give everybody a chance, because the goal of the token is to distribute the token to the people who are going to use the network. They're going to contribute in the network, to stake and become miners, to use the token to provide services, right? That's what tokens are for. And by having larger denomination and kind of mid cap for batch C and smaller cap for batch C as a way to get all the different community members, regardless of your financial standing, regardless of your role, we are able to get the token to the people who are actually going to use the system. And that's why we designed it this way. And I got to give a lot of credit to our Swiss advisor and also our advisors beyond Switzerland in kind of giving us understanding of how the Asian market works and stuff like that. It's been really helpful working with them and say, this is a finite pie of token to be distributed. How do we maximize the impact of this in terms of building the community? And I think by splitting that way, we've accomplished that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, great. And I think it's worth mentioning that the biggest bonus was given in the first batch. It was 10%.
It was 20%, 20% and no more. And there was a lot of people asking me for different terms and asking our team for greater bonus. It's not fair. All right. So it's all just uniform 20%. And if a fair project is not what you want, then, there are other projects that will give you the 50% bonus, which is not healthy for the ecosystem. So we've held the line pretty, held the line pretty strong and believe that kind of equal bonus, it fosters just kind of understanding that we're all in the same boat. We're all in the same have the same commitment to the project. So yes, in batch A, the maximum bonus, and actually the only bonus, there's no lower, it's 20. And then for the batch B, which is the Bitcoin Swiss coordinated process, it is 10%.
10%. Okay. Okay, I think it's very important for the community to know about that, because usually when there are this kind of batches or tiers, you expect that you would give more than 35%. That's the common thing now.
That's not healthy, in my opinion.
That's definitely not healthy. Yes. Okay. So maybe this would be my last question. My last serious question, let's say. One of the concerns in the community is that you still don't have the MVP, or at least you do not show to public the MVP. When should we expect it, and why you decided to do the crowdfunding first and not give the MVP the perfect, let's say, strategy for the token generation event?
Well, maybe we didn't communicate enough, but when you go to CARDSTACK.com and you log in and you do the KYC, and then later on when you get your Ethereum whitelisted confirmation, that's actually running on CARDSTACK Hub. It's actually running on our stack completely. All the plugins that has been open source for connecting to login systems, we centralize one right now in the future, all the indexing, all the communication, so that when we update the whitelist on Ethereum, we automatically update the dashboard because we're listening for all the addresses we care about of all the contributors whitelist. That's all done on the CARDSTACK Hub. So the MVP is the application that you're using to be part of the token generation event. We'll make that clearer in the community. Now, again, this is a little bit risky for a project to take, right? It's very easy to say, here's an MVP, it does some stuff and download it, play with it. It's another one to say, let's take the most important milestone in an open source crypto project and run it on our own software. And that's what we did. So if anybody still have questions about MVP, check it out. And there might be problems with it, and you may have to contact support to fix it. And we have been listening to things and fixing things along the way. But that's the ultimate dog food, right? That's the ultimate trust that we believe in our software. We believe in the security of software. Our smart contract went through 2 rounds of audit. We wrote a smart contract. We didn't download on the internet. We wrote it from scratch because we have a certain way of wanting to do upgradable contracts so we can add to it. That's been audited by NCC Group, a publicly traded security firm based in London. And we've done the work. We may not be as public and as at other projects, but the people who know us and then sees this to see that we're definitely a diligent team, and the MVP, we're proud of it, and we'll add a lot more features to it. And obviously, the user experience aspect is not really a real goal. It was just whatever is enough to get through the TGE process. But the hub, the basic orchestration bus, the data layer, that's the real stuff. Like we've built that, and we're really proud of it. So yeah, the MVP is live.
Hey, okay, great. So. Well, I usually give 45 seconds to the speaker in the end of our interview to address our audience. This time, I'm changing that actually. Every time I ask different questions. So this time, I'm going to ask you a question. You can take it seriously, or you can take it as a joke, as whatever you wish. So, how to become a venture capitalist?
How do you become a venture capitalist? Well, venture capitalists, a lot of times, don't understand what it actually takes to do the work. And they give money to or give resources to the people that do the work. And some entrepreneurs do become venture capitalists. I would say that in the future, in this new decentralized world, the difference between people doing the work and the people putting and contributing financial resource will get blurrier and blurrier. So many of the contributors, so many of the people who I'm talking to are working on their own project. They're entrepreneurs, they're doing things, they're service providers, right? Now, obviously, they have crypto and they have to manage their financial portfolio. And sometimes they get into currency, sometimes they go into token projects. And then they advise. Sometimes they do it professionally, sometimes they do it because they like you. It's all blurry now, right? Everybody's playing every part, and I love it. There's no more artificial separation between venture capitalists, private bankers, hedge funds, and entrepreneurs, and public company CEO, private companies leadership, consulting leads, practice director. They're all the same people. Everybody is wearing multiple hats. So these traditional boundaries we have in the old financial ecosystem are erasing, and it's just people doing what they love, what they're good at, getting better at it by doing it, and that's amazing, right? You can wear any clothes you wear, you can live in any city you want, you can travel in any means you want, on a boat, on a plane. I don't really care. And that's really exciting, right? These labels we put on people are going away, and it's just people working together towards the betterment of the society, and also doing really well along the process. So that's important too. So they can sustain and actually reinvest, more importantly, not just their money, but their time. And get that freedom to connect and freedom to say, hey, I've done well enough to go talk to someone for 3 hours, and knowing that I don't have to go and take a sick leave to be able to do that. And that freedom, that self-actualization come from the ability to do well as well. So that's my view. I would like these labels to go away.
Great. Great. Chris, thank you so much for this interview. It was such a delight talking to you. Thank you for your honesty, transparency, and for your expressiveness. I think it was one of the most colorful interviews I've had so far. So thank you so much for this experience.
And thank you very much. And I hope your community got something out of it. And I would like to connect with you and just reach out. Come to our Telegram, t.me/CARDSTACK. And if you're interested in joining a community in a more substantial way, KYC is only open till this Sunday. So get ready.
Great. Great. Well, dear audience, thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below this video, and we will come back to you with the answers. And check out the Telegram chat. They are very responsive, the admins, I mean. So thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.